Hi, this video accompanies demonstrator deliverable D63, which is titled The Early Demo on Textual Image Search and is a demonstrator deliverable in the FashionBrain project. So to begin, this demo works in such a way that you can enter a textual search query and select a customer segment, which could be female, male, unisex, or kids, right? And then by pushing this button, you enter a search query. And what you can see is that if I enter the query search and restrict the domain to be male, I get a bunch of t-shirts that are for male customers. And if I flip this radio button to female with the same textual search query, I get a bunch of t-shirts that are for female customers. Okay, and so the point of this web demo is essentially to allow us to qualitatively inspect how well our prototype for the web search is actually working. So a little bit of background is that the approach that we are using does not use, in this demonstrator, does not use any structured attributes, but rather we use a neural information retrieval approach in which we embed both textual queries, such as t-shirt, and images into an embedding space. And so the challenge for the system is to identify which word has which semantics in which image. So ideally, for instance, such a system must be able to realize that t-shirts, images of t-shirts look like this, right? And so what we're first going to do is we're going to test a bunch of different clothing items just to see if this basic concept is successfully recognized in the images. So for instance, hemd. Another thing that I should point out that this demo is in German. So I'm going to translate all the terms from German into English as I type them in, okay? And so one term that we use now is Hemd, which is shirt in German. And what we can see is that this successfully returns a list of shirts, meaning that the approach has recognized that all these images have semantics that mirror the semantics of this word here. Another word is Schuhe, which is German for shoes. And if we type this in, we actually retrieve a list of shoes. Similarly, if we type something like Hose, which is German for pants, we get a list of pants. And finally, if we type something in like Hut, which is German for hat, we retrieve a list of hats. And what this essentially tells us is that at least these basic concepts, what is a shirt, what is a hat, can successfully be recognized in images by our neural information retrieval approach. But what about more complex, more complicated things such as brands, right? So Adidas. I think it's, given the silhouette of these images, that it's fairly constant. It's maybe not such a big surprise that something like t-shirt can be recognized. But what about something like Adidas? Well, to test this, we issue the search Adidas. And what we find is that even though this approach is only looking into images, it can still find a lot of products that are from Adidas. It's because brands actually do have features, visual features, that are visible in the images. For instance, Adidas has these very distinctive stripes on the sneakers. It has a little logo on the jersey. But what we also see is that there's a mistake being made in these results. Namely, one of the jerseys that is being returned is from Puma. So somehow the algorithm got confused and sees some sort of a visual similarity between this jersey and that jersey. Okay, so another one would be Nike, another famous one. And again, we see that Nike is actually visually kind of distinctive, and so the approach is actually able to pick up on these signals in the images. So we retrieve a bunch of jerseys and shoes that belong to Nike. Finally, for maybe one more, to use Superdry, what we get are a bunch of clothes, I hope, from Superdry. I think they are. And again, if we switch the domain for female customers, we get the appropriate clothes for female customers. One thing that is also interesting is this idea of combinations. So we can see that, okay, it can recognize shoes, it can recognize brands, but what about a combination, right? So this gives me both shoes and jerseys, but what if I only want Adidas shoes, right? And so by issuing this query, what I get is a list of shoes from Adidas. And I believe most of these are actually correct. Maybe even all of them. Okay? And again, if I switch the domain to female, I get female shoes from Adidas. And to make it even more complex, so let's go into colors, we could also add something like grün, which is green in German. So now we're looking for green Adidas shoes for women. And if I hit this query, we can see that most of these shoes are in fact green. And from Adidas and for women. So this combination of many different concepts has worked as well. To look a little bit more into colors, let's go into dresses. So if Kleid is German for dress, and what I could do is I ask for a red dress, which is a rotes Kleid. I could also ask for a green dress, which is ein grünes Kleid. It's actually misspelled, but it's robust, so that's good. And I can also look into color combinations, or let's say blaues Kleid, which is a blue dress, and I can look into light blue dress, which is like a more shaded variant, and a dark blue dress, which is dunkelblaues Kleid. And we can also look into more abstract concepts like buntes Kleid, which means colorful dress. And also we can look into gestreiftes Kleid, right? So we look into a dress that has stripes, and then we can infuse more colors. So we could say a striped dress in, let's say, blue, which is blau in German. So what we can see that we get a lot of striped dresses with blue stripes. And also we can do the same thing with rot. That gives us dresses with red stripes. Most of them are. Not all of them, but many of them are. Yes, so maybe to go into even more complex queries, let's go into the domain of shirts, which is Hemd in German. And what we notice that a lot of the shirts that we see here actually have long sleeves. So maybe you want to have a shirt with short sleeves, which is this query. And what we can see here is that the results have changed, and in fact a few of these shirts are short sleeves, but not all of them. So the approaches struggle to interpret this query. It's kind of a weird way of saying it in German too. So a different way to say it, which would probably be more normal, would be to write something like kurzärmeliges Hemd. And as we can see, this has actually worked a lot better. So here, most of the results are in fact short-sleeved shirts. We can also ask again for white short-sleeved shirts. So add a color in there, and what we can see is that a lot of them are white, but not all of them. And what is quite curious is in fact that there's a few black ones in here, which seems counterintuitive given that the colors are so far apart. And also we can do schwarz, which is a black shirt with short sleeves, and again we can see that a lot of them have worked. But there's some gray ones in there, there's some striped ones in there, so it is not perfect. Finally, maybe some more abstract queries are something like office, which is Büro in German. So this would give us office attire, such as shirts and a tie. And also we can look at something like Hochzeit, which means wedding. And what we can see is a result of mostly ties and suits, but strangely enough, even though we're in the German domain, some wedding dresses, which is strange. And if we switch to gender, and we still put in Hochzeit, which means wedding, we get a bunch of wedding dresses. So as a final query, let's do Fußballhemd, which is a soccer jersey. And what we get is, this is now for women, we get a lot of soccer-related things, but not all jerseys. And for male, we also get a lot of soccer-related things, mostly jerseys. So what we can see is that this approach is surprisingly powerful, but it also still makes some naive mistakes, which is why we are still developing it. Thank you very much.